to this week's AMA. We are going to go ahead and get started. We may have one or two more people hop up speakers, but while we finish getting everything set up, we can go ahead and kick it off. So up first, we have an update coming from Dreamer, which if you're very on top of your notifications, you saw a post about this just a moment ago. Dreamer, are you there? One moment. Dreamer is not showing up as a speaker on his end, but he is on mine. So I just tried to re-add him to see if that works.
All right,
Dreamer.
now can you hear me?
There we go.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know. Desktop version of Spaces, I think, still a little buggy, but happy to be here. Yeah, we just did a updated tweet. So earlier this week, it was announced that we are working with the Influencer Fight Club, which is being put on by CryptoZaurus and Karate Combat. This is still months out, so the ramp up is going to be a bit slower, and it's going to start getting more and more, hopefully, exponentially increased exposure. This is usually how a lot of fight promoters do things. There's a big fight coming up in December. Karate Combat is focused on some cool names on there. If you follow MMA, Anthony Pettis, I believe, is fighting, among a few others. And there's a really exciting party around that. So George is putting that on. In the most recent tweets, there's a link there. If you've been following Crypto Grady, he announced a few weeks ago that he was fighting and dropped the link as well. It's the same party. It's looking to be a really good time and may have some special appearances from folks that I'm unsure who will be there, but there's a UFC event, there's a Karate Combat event, there's a lot of people coming in for it, so it'll be a good time. Influencer Fight Club page, if you haven't already and you want to support it, if you're interested in combat sports and everything, go give it a follow. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming out there. From my perspective, this is not necessarily an increased time focus. You know, in my personal time, I would usually work out or go surfing or do something to stay active to balance the day. With this opportunity, and which is something, you know, I've never gotten to do this, but I've always kind of been a martial arts nerd, as I call it, where I just punch a bag and learn things, but I've never really gotten to test it outside of real life and encounters that have happened a few times. So when I was asked to do it, it was similar to the show. You know, do we put ourselves out there with some risk, potentially have some return, make some partnerships, get some collaboration, have some fun, and probably participate in something before I'm too old to do it in a couple years. So really excited to be a part of it. I know that George is working hard. His team is working hard. There's a pretty cool group of influencers that are doing it too. And hopefully if this is successful, there will be more in the future. And, you know, already have 2 or 3 partnerships and collaborations in the queue. And we've already seen, you know, Crypto Crow mentioned us a few times in tweets and on video, along with Grady. He's just generally interested in DeFi Kingdoms and that exposure and those friendships that come from doing stuff like this, getting outside of our bubble. They really open those doors, or at least provide some of the opportunity there. So hope people can be supportive. And if it isn't your thing, that's okay. Still supporting is great in any way that you feel comfortable. But for any that are worried, similar to the Mythic Swap announcement, that this was going to pull focus away or in any way deprioritize DFK, it's actually the opposite. Really the primary reason for me training, trying to lose, I don't know, probably like 15 or 20 pounds to compete with Phil Russell, because that guy's in great shape, and travel around a bit and work on kind of the long-term focus of amplification and partnerships, it's for you guys, man. And I don't want to go and get punched in the face for no reason. I'm not doing it to get rich. We're doing it to try to create some entertainment, some some hype, and have some fun while we're doing it, and make some good friendships, collaborations along the way. So stoked on that. If you want to give follows, shares, and everything, other fighters are really interesting as well. A lot of these guys I didn't know about or follow beforehand, but in getting to know a lot of them, they're fun. They are exposed to different communities that we're not. And I think it's good for all of us to get outside of our bubble and continue to expand our networks. So I'll pause. Bolon, did that cover everything there? Did you want to add?
I think that did cover everything. I'll just add, I'm too old for that now. Uh, no, super excited for that. I think it'll be a really cool opportunity for you. And I got to meet Phil in Miami at Cypherpunk, and it'll be fun to watch you beat him. So looking forward to that.
And Phil and I are probably going to be doing spaces. There's probably going to be weekly or every other week spaces with the Influencer Fight Club. Probably going to be trying to target some fighters out there, some other communities and companies. So it's a really this is just the beginning. We're just kind of figuring stuff out, but hopefully it'll turn into an engine for all kind of benefits that are a bit unforeseen at this moment. So thanks for the support. And for those that are worried, don't worry. Going to train hard, going to fight hard, going to remain focused on professional things, and honestly just get in healthier shape and make some friendships and relationships that we wouldn't have otherwise without this opportunity. So I am very bullish on it and grateful for the support.
Very nice. Let's see. And then we also have an update on blockchain explorers from Magnus.
Hey everybody. So yeah, I'm stoked to let everybody know that Snowtrace, Block Explorer, they've been working diligently on a migration the last weeks or probably months. And previously Snowtrace was geared specifically for Avalanche C chain, but with this latest migration, they're displaying data for C chain in addition to the many Avalanche subnets, including ours, of course. So Snowtrace will be a third location. You can check out DFK Chain data. Snowtrace, it's supported by the same team, and I believe is powered by the same backend as Avascan. So huge props to them for stepping up and being willing to lend technical support to Snowtrace to carry out that upgrade, which was definitely a pretty significant lift with kind of having to migrate over the data as well as the big piece is the contract verifications. I know there's a lot of work around that as well. So huge props to that team. And it's always a great thing in Web3 to have multiple block explorers. So very exciting news there. So that gives us 3 now with the subnet block explorer that Ava Labs provides, as well as Avascan and Snowtrace. With that, I will pass the mic over to Sunbear, who also has an announcement for us.
All right, thanks, Magnus. My announcement is I will not be fighting for anyone, DFK or otherwise, unless it's in the F-list Battle Showdown. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about one of our partners. I know you've heard of him before. F-list has their third big tournament happening starting tomorrow. Battle Showdown number 3, and it goes for 11 days. They're putting up some big prize money. And lots of different, I think, daily giveaways as well. So we're official partners in this tournament. So we're going to be giving away vouchers for people to get some heroes in our game to new players that haven't seen us before or played before. So invite you all to come and be a part of it. Get on that leaderboard. Maybe earn some prizes there, and yeah, just support our partners as they really try and bring this Web3 experience to more Web2 users. So yeah, I'll be battling there in a very safe and fun place. No offense, streamer. You got this.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. For those of you that remember, the F-list Battle Showdown game has our Bloater Knight and Spellblub characters. And it's just a fun game. It's like a Super Smash style game, and really enjoyable. So I'm excited for that campaign as well. I think it'll be a good time.
And they're actually an app now, so you can download and play on your phone as well. And if you haven't played it, it's a little bit like you said, a little bit like Smash Brothers, but the Dread Bloater is actually being featured in this tournament. So, or whatever we ended up calling it. I like to call it a Dread Bloater. It's a bloater with the Dread Knight body.
It's awesome. That's all it is. Yeah, really looking forward to that. So keep an eye out for more details on that as well. And with that, we are going to move into some questions. But today, we have returned the man, the myth, the legend himself, the Hubert Cumberdale. So we're going to catch up on a series of questions for Hubert. And my joke about Hubert Hour may not be as much of a joke today. So welcome back, Hubert. How's your trip, first and foremost?
Thank you. I'm glad to be back, you guys. Yeah, it was a really good trip. I'm very jet lagged right now, so I apologize if I sound tired. I woke up at like 4 a.m. and I just could not go back to sleep today, or afterwards. So it's already. And then of course, even though it's only like noonish right now, it already feels pretty late as far as my brain is concerned and body. So. It's fun, but yeah, it was a really good trip. Me and my wife went to Japan. It's been kind of a long time since we've been back there. My wife is Japanese, so it was a coming home time for her, and basically spent a lot of time doing things that she wanted to do. But that was fine. It was really fun, and I really love Japan, and it's always great to be able to go back there. So, but I'm back and ready to kind of get back into gear with everything. And I guess there's a whole bunch of questions here that I have to answer. So here we go.
Let's get into it. All right. So first up, a few AMAs ago, one of the last ones that you were on before your trip, it was mentioned potentially having, or the ability to have a place on different lands for heroes to be able to recover. Thoughts on the cost of healing heroes, and will it scale based on their amount of HP?
Yeah, as far as like what the cost will be, it's a little early for us to say exactly. I think in general, I want the system to be kind of set up to where there would be like a minimum requirement, but then the landowners themselves would have some control over what the actual cost would be. So there could be kind of a competition amongst lands for bed space and whatnot, and I guess quality of inns, how fast you recover, etc. Kind of having a whole little, just in general, having that kind of a mindset where there's a competition of service providers, which are the lands that provide those services, like in this case, inns. So yeah, as far as it being like based on how much HP is being recovered or MP, that may be a bit more complicated than I'd like to go. It most likely would be more tied to the level of the hero, I would think. But yeah, it's just a little too early to say too many details beyond that.
Very nice. Ironically, the quality inn is not a quality inn. Just if anybody's looking for a place to stay. But thoughts on having the option to sacrifice a hero for experience? So you would, burn a hero and get a random amount of their experience extracted that you could then apply to another hero.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I know there's a few other questions coming up that are also kind of related to hero burn. And I'll just say that we have been working in the background on a hero burn mechanic of our own, which I think when it comes to these other suggested ideas, there's elements of some of them and sometimes not, but I think we're kind of at this point going to be focused on getting that complete and out. And so I guess maybe that'll get you a little bit more excited, but it doesn't include this, like the feature in this question. So I think in terms of like power leveling heroes. Once expeditions are out, it's going to be much easier to use stamina potions to get experience. Also, as we're increasing what combat content is available, that also provides a much greater source of experience as well. So I think this is going to be kind of the continued direction we're going in, and not having a hero burn mechanic that specifically grants experience.
Makes sense, makes sense. Shifting gears a little bit, will pet element have an impact on its combat effects? For example, if it matches the element of the hero?
That's an interesting question. I hadn't really thought too much about that, but we are getting closer to the point where we're going to start defining how the combat bonuses work on pets. So that will be one thing to be considered as we're doing that. But yeah, I can't commit one way or the other on that at this point.
All right. Let's see. Is on to equipment and hunts for a moment. Is it safe to assume the current drop rate difference for weapons is mainly coming from the number of classes who will be able to use them? For example, more classes can use blades than bows. Does that feed into their drop rate?
It does indeed. Yeah, that's a good question, and observant as well. That was the reason why there's a difference between the three weapon types. It was, you know, if every class could equip every weapon, then those would have had the same drop rates instead. But since that's not the way it works, that's why we have it set up that way. And you can kind of expect there to be some degree of that kind of mindset for future loot as well.
Speaking of future loot, as the kind of value is discovered of the current weapons with just the one hunt out, do we expect things to change once guild weapons are unavailable, or will there be, at the same time, additional ways to get weapons? And if so, any thoughts on whether those will be weaker, similar, or stronger than the current drops?
Yeah, so we do have plans to eventually have some kind of base gear that would be acquired through the game that would eventually be replacing the gear that you borrow if you don't have your own gear equipped right now with the Void Hunts. As far as like the power level for those, it's for like the target level, there will be you can kind of expect it to be how it is right now. Like the level 10 equipment would be similar to what you can equip or what you get to borrow to equip right now, which is geared towards level 10 and not like if we were to turn that off and have you use just no armor or your base armor, you'd have a much worse time right now than it is with the gear using. So yeah, so you would expect that if that would be a sort you would. I'm sorry. Also, I am jet lagged, so apologies for just being tired. But yes. Anyway, so the gear from the hunts, you can generally expect those to be stronger than what you'd be able to get from just like a vendor type of equipment. But with that said, you know, we may eventually release gear that is geared towards like level 20. And at that point, you know, gear that's dropping from the current hunts is more like level 10 in that range. So once you know, when you get to the higher level gear, there'd be that probably you'd see your stats being higher in that case too. So in that point, we'd likely be looking at dropping level 20 loot that's better than whatever base gear that you can get. But kind of a long answer, and you know, I could go into more details, but I'll stop rambling for now on that one.
No, greatly appreciated, and no need to apologize for jet lag. Any thoughts currently on when the boar hunt will be unavailable again?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of tied to just our development rate. Like we are currently working on the next hunt, and progress is going well with that. But we do want to have more than one hunt available, usually at a time. So I don't think this new hunt is going to replace the old one for the time being. So it'll likely stay around for a bit longer. But come time for say the third hunt, I think that might be about the time where we'll be dropping the boar hunt. And then it may resurface again in the future, either as an event or as a part of kind of the more overarching game loop as we get that further developed. So, but yeah, I do. There still are plans though to have that eventually retire, at least from being regularly available. So, yep.
Very nice. Completely changing topics. Are we aiming to reduce pet/egg inflation?
Yeah, good question. So I don't know if we had previously posted a vote and then we rescinded it because of issues with the Holiday wallet that we were resolving. I think we'll likely be putting up a new vote on changing the raffle rewards here in a little bit. So if you did see that previously, though, you might have noticed that we took out a lot of the egg rewards from that. So there was kind of a conscientious effort to reduce the egg drop rates that are coming through that system. And I can't say for sure we're going to change anything with the quest rewards at this point, but I think it will be a topic of discussion in our next tokenomics meeting or two. So we'll have more info in the future if we're planning to do something like that.
Awesome. Yeah, for those of you that missed it, we posted that vote and then discovered that our voting site does not currently support ERC 4337 wallets, which meant that anybody using Holiday could not vote, and that was not the answer that we were looking for. So we actually just earlier this week, I think, sure, that sounds right. I think it was Monday. Added the ability to delegate your voting power between wallets. So that's a step in the right direction for that problem solving. Let's see. Any thoughts on potentially at some point having titles in the game?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. If it's, I guess, if we're talking like titles of a profile or if it's titles that get attached to heroes, I guess those two different ideas have different implications. And, I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea. I think in terms of just development resources right now, it's probably something we wouldn't be able to prioritize anytime soon. But, as we get the game further developed, that's something that I think is, I know in other games, like I play Final Fantasy 14, title hunting is a real thing. And I do like that kind of aspect of gameplay myself. So it is something that I would support. I just don't think it's something we'd be doing anytime soon.
Awesome. Yeah. I know you already spoke a little bit about it. So there was another question about potentially doing a burn event just through the dead address rather than dark summoning and then doing a raffle for that. But I imagine that is primarily covered by your earlier answer. But if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah, I think stay tuned for when we have more announcements on that. There's been a lot of work done in the background, and kudos to Burr, who has been my lead analyst on kind of the system that we're building for it. Once we have that out, I think you'll see that what we're going for is a little bit more advanced and involved in just the game environment as a whole. Which I think will be more healthy for just having more hero burn options. So, all these other suggestions are great. I hate saying no to every suggestion when we already have something planned. And if the suggestion isn't what we're doing, we're probably not going to be changing at least for now, and seeing how the current system that we're building does. So, yeah.
Fair enough. One thing I forgot to add on the topic of the eggs and pets. There was a separate question, but related, so I'm just going to combine them combine. thoughts on like future ways to potentially burn pets or similar, so that there are not eventually, mythic pets for every hero or similar.
Yeah. So I do think pets are something that should have a little bit more options for burning than there are currently. With like equipment, we are going to have the durability system turn on eventually, so that is one of our a countermeasure against inflation of those NFTs. But pets, we don't really have that as much at the moment, so it is something that we're thinking about, and it may be something that is kind of an add-on to the system that I referred to earlier, but I think there's something we can do there, but it may not be initially included when we get to that point.
Awesome. Also kind of similar to a question earlier, but a little bit different. Thoughts on having a like very rare and hard to obtain item that allows you to level up a hero regardless of their experience?
Yeah, I mean, I realize that leveling up takes a long time, so I could see the allure of items like that. Though I do think we need to be a little bit careful about like how easy we make it to to power level your hero. So ideas like that are kind of okay. I guess it depend on like when we define like extremely rare. I would probably like it to be very 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 rare if we were to do something like that. But I won't say no to the idea in general. I think there's possible ways that we could make something like that work, but probably not something that I'm going to be prioritizing, especially with some of the things we have coming down the pike.
Awesome. On boar hunts, so right now the level of the boars rounds up if your hero party level is not an even number or a flat number, uh, not even flat. Thoughts on changing that to do more standard rounding?
Yeah, I in general err on the side of difficult. So with it rounding up right now, that ensures that we have kind of a set level of difficulty, and it's not something where you can easily game it. As far as like I have seen some people use like even like a level 1 or like level 2 priest to win before, which just and then like having like level 15 or higher other classes, like that sort of thing. I want to encourage people to try things, but I also don't think I want to make it easier in the regard of like doing a rounding down or a standard round. I think the more important challenge is just making sure that our balancing is set up to the point where when you get to those higher levels, that it feels like it's still possible to win, which I guess, at least in my own experiences with my heroes, I can generally win if I have like 2 11s and a level 10, for example. So I don't think the difficulty is too hard at this point, but I know that if you go too extreme, then it can definitely be way too hard. So it just kind of, quirks of the system. But in general, no, I don't really want to change that.
Awesome. Completely new topic again for you. Will equipment dies have rarity?
Generally, that is a plan that we have. Even right now with the we only have one item that actually like comes out pre-dyed, which is the secondhand pants. There are rare dyes in those drop rates actually, so not all colors are created equal in that drop rate, and I think we're going to kind of maintain that same degree of rarity with the dyes as we move forward too.
Awesome. So I have conflicting questions. So I'm gonna give you both of them and let you weigh in. So the first one is, can we keep the rarity of mokshas and make it an investment to reach those higher levels? And then the second one is moksha rune prices are kind of paywalling, leveling past a certain point. So thoughts on moksha supply and the future of it, and if you want to include anything else in there, obviously feel free.
Yeah, so I think with the way it's set up right now, mokshas are a bit on the the heavy rare side. We do have some thoughts for increasing it to an extent, but the ways that we would increase it, I think, would be in pretty smart ways where there would be an associated kind of cost with it that I think will continue to maintain a balance of like player demand versus the price. So it wouldn't be something where it's just like, oh, we're just going to 10x the drop rate of them or anything like that. But we are looking at more ways to get them in the future with some of the systems that are being worked on right now.
Yeah, I think it's important too to keep in mind, we got 80 levels to go, so there'll be more runes, and that balance will be kind of constantly shifting. Is that fair to say?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Once we get to the next rune, I think we may look at adjusting things, but we also with some of the stuff that's coming, I hate to kind of be this guy that just wait for the future, but I do think one of the things that we're planning to introduce will kind of adjust the dynamic to a certain extent, and I'm waiting to see how that will be received and how it will be used, and from there, then we'll be able to make, I think, more informed decisions after that point. So I guess there's already some things in the work that you can look forward to, but yeah. Anyway, I think that's all I'll say right now.
Hewart's teasing hard on this AMA. Speaking of runes, the follow-up question would be thoughts on when the next rune may be available.
Yeah, so for that, that is a tricky one. The moment we release the next rune, that means we have to have all of the classes that have skills have all the rest of their skills set up, because I believe at level 30 you can use basically any of the level 10 skills at that point once you get to level 30. So we'd have to have all of that implemented and whatnot. So there's a pretty big jump that we need to just develop for once we get to that point. Not to mention having equipment and everything else already as well for people to use. So I guess long story short, I think it's something that I wouldn't like to see come out too soon before we have other things developed. Getting more classes ready and having more things like PvP and just more of a gameplay loop in game and available, so that players can do more than just hunts and have other PvE content available. So we can have just that more solid progression being something that you can feel more regularly. And then once we get to that point, then I think it just becomes a natural progression for us to then do the next 10 levels and kind of have a good sense of what we need to do as we release things. So yeah, you can continue to expect level 20 to be the cap for, I think, a good while yet.
Awesome. Appreciate you. Let's see. Which actually, we took a question last week that Workhorse volunteered to answer for us, but I'll pose it to you as well, and we can compare your answers later. Of what you feel like needs to be in place prior to PvP. I will give you some cheat codes. We talked about having more classes, like at least all basics, and having some other mechanics in place as well. But just curious to your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think for me, I'd like to have bring your own potion done, have the hero traits and genes all also built into the system, and yeah, at least have more of the basic classes available than there are right now. Like I would potentially be open to having PvP out before all of the basics are available, but I think there needs to be more variety than there is at the moment, and also having just a little bit more options as far as equipment goes than we do right now. So, but some of those things can kind of come out along with PvP as well. It doesn't have to be like all waiting, and once all of those things are done, then we do PvP. I think some of it could just be a part of the PvP launch. So yeah, I think that kind of covers at least my thoughts on it.
And Hubert, last week we tried the hedge hards, and people shouldn't expect it until all basics were out. And look at Sticks Intern hitting the like button like 1,753 times when he said maybe not before all basics are out.
Yeah, I think more it's about the mechanics and getting them in, for me. So we don't have subclasses involved yet. I think that's another thing I'd like to have as well, because that once you can have your subclass abilities, I think that's really going to change the dynamic of how all heroes work, and that involves also having like weapon switching as well. So there's just a few more pieces of just the general gameplay mechanics that we want to have in play, that I want to have in place at least before we get to that point. But I think if there's a good enough selection of classes available, then I don't think we need to wait beyond that if everything else is in place.
I'll just say by the emojis going off in spaces, which is a cool addition. I think people want to smash each other in whatever PvP we have in the leaderboards there. If we're having this much fun competing in how many times we can beat the boars, or when we had other types of leaderboards, or on duels, and imagine doing tournament with Bolon and some guest like influencer and some sponsor with the pot of a tournament where we're actually like doing PvP and having PvP seasons with like, I don't know, 8 to 10 classes out, everybody having different teams, looking differently. Man, I'm excited. So Hubert, I don't know when that'll happen, and the rest of the team, we're going to be working at it, but I know that everybody listening and people that will listen to this after are probably going to really look forward to that future reality whenever it comes, hopefully at one point next year.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the key takeaway from all of this, is that we're also very excited for PvP, but there's not like a hard, like, once you see this thing, that means PvP is open and on the table. It's all based on that combat system, and it is kind of a moving target as we figure out what all needs to be in place. But I'm super excited for it. I'm excited to lose. I will not win, but that's okay. I'll host the tournaments. That way I don't have to participate in them and lose. Future summoning question for Hubert. Will the class above Dread Knight have a summon possible, or will it be capped at 0?
So I'll just say what my design plan was, and say also just hedge by saying, things are always potential to be changed, but it has always been my plan to have that tier not have any summons available. So the only way to create that class is through mutations through summoning.
Very nice. Yeah, that one's a ways off. So no commitment to that answer, but I like the answer. Any thoughts on how Crystal Vale land might be distributed when it becomes available?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different ways I think that we're gonna want to leave open for lands. I think we'll want to be doing giveaways, and I still am looking forward to having tournaments also be tied to lands. We do have that as it's been long on the list, and it's still on the list, but you still am planning on doing at least some degree of that. there's always going to be a mixture of having some that are rewarded through gameplay and others that are rewarded through other means. So I think you can kind of expect, that kind of degree. We'll have more to say once we get closer to having that available. But yeah, in general, I guess multiple ways is kind of the answer.
And a follow-up question regarding lands and the map. Do we expect to see a rework of those maps with either expeditions and or travel?
So yeah, I guess the term rework, I'm not sure what you're asking with that, but I think when we kind of discussed this, it was maybe the thought was like, would roads start to show up or things like that? And I think what I'll say is that I certainly would like to see the map be able to evolve as the game evolves, and I think we have a few ideas for how that might work. I think just with the travel system being out, I don't think there would be an immediate change at that point. The Crystal Vale map itself is going to expand, so that will, I guess, I wouldn't call that a rework, but it's an expansion of the map. And as we progress forward with having travel in the game and kind of start flexing that, like what that means for the game, I think we'll see what ideas work, what we can do, and it'll be kind of an ever evolving thing as we go.
Awesome. Yeah. I got a couple more for you and then we'll give you a break. Thoughts on having a Gen Zero staking mechanic where players would stake their Gen Zeros, not be able to summon with them during that time, and depending on how long they stake them for, give them rewards of like greater crystals or other items.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I think that certainly would help with hero inflation, potentially, but yeah, I don't really think it's a bad idea per se. I also don't know that I really want to see how things change once we have this system I keep referring to out, because depending on how well it works or not, I think we might want to consider things like that. And there's also potential for other changes if the community were to vote on it, etc. But yeah, I don't dislike that idea.
Nice. And last one for the moment. For expeditions, are we planning on a power up per hero or per wallet?
I believe, I'm pretty sure that we're doing that as a per hero setup. So, but now I can feel like I need to go double check. It's been a while since we did that vote, but I'm pretty sure that was what we were planning. Sorry, jet lag brain.
Very nice. All right. Giving Hubert a break for a moment.
Thank you.
No, thank you. We appreciate you. Welcome back. We can now go back to limiting, like half an hour of each AMA for your questions. But you are caught up to all of the questions that we bypassed to save for you. So congratulations. Welcome back. People have missed you while you were gone. Let's see. So, any plans for desktop and mobile wallpapers with a good quality? That is actually something we've talked about a little bit internally, and do think it would be, fun and cool to offer to people. Don't have any progress to report on at the moment, but we have talked about it and do think it would be exciting. So, stay tuned for more on that front. Similarly. Thoughts on creating a media pack for content creators. We actually do have a media kit that is publicly available, so we can definitely make sure that everybody has access to that, which if they then have other requests, we can probably facilitate at least the majority of those. But I think the media kit we have would probably cover the majority of what folks are looking for So we'll make sure that people have the link to that. It's got the DFK logos and the token icons and that kind of thing. All right, and then on to questions for other people. This is, I'm guessing, a Beetledude question. Thoughts on having a Hunt's leaderboard shown in the tavern?
Ooh, I get to say things. Huzzah. But this sounds suspiciously like something people are trying to add to my list. Yeah, I mean, I think eventually that would be great to have a leaderboard. I think, we've had leaderboards in the past, and I think depending on how we handle them, it could be good. That being said, I always want to give shout out to the DFK Quester leaderboard, which has some great metrics as well, and really done a great job of breaking that all down. So that's a great place to go in the meantime. But yeah, I think in the future that could be and should be on our list. I think as we continue to move forward with combat stuff, we'll have more and more need for that, especially as we sneak into PvP and other event based items. So definitely something to put on the list. I think it might be a bigger lift. So I don't know that it'll be coming soon, but like I said, I think as we continue to get more content out, it'll be more necessary as well. That's my non-answer answer.
We appreciate your answer here. And one for the man himself, KP. What impact, if any, does KP joining Kingdom Studios have on plans for the dark market tool? You're here, so I figured I'd let you speak to that yourself.
Thanks, Bolon. Well, first off, I'm glad that you gave Hubert a little bit of a break. I mean, after being gone on vacation, he's going to need another month off after that. So as far as the dark market goes, we've been in testing for a couple of weeks now on the DFK Chain testnet. Winston's done a great job of going through and helping us test everything. We still have a couple things on our Trello board to take care of, but hoping to get onto beta next week and to mainnet and then have the final testing done. So I think rolling up here in the next week or two, we should have the dark market available and people can start using it. I'm super excited about it and hoping that everybody is as well. I did want to also to mention that I have Magnus coming on Monday. So we're going to talk about expeditions, hopefully a little bit of alpha there and some other things going on that he's working on. So excited to see all of you guys on DFK Monday Night Madness if you're up for that on the YouTube channel. And with that, I'll throw it back to you, Bolon.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And good call out of having Magnus. I forgot about that, but looking forward to it. All right. Let's see. I think we got time for one more question, and then we will wrap up for this week. So, for people who purely want Joule, what are our plans on making it more easily accessible? I mean, I'll kick off a little bit and then see Dreamer if you want to add anything or anybody else. But first and foremost, like in today's world, obviously we have our decks on DFK Chain as an option, but outside of that, we also have on ramps, so people can buy Joule directly with a credit or debit card through a few different on ramps now. I think we're up to 4, if I can count right, which is questionable. So that's definitely an option. We've said a little bit about centralized exchanges the last few weeks, but yeah, it's definitely something that we're looking at expanding. Dreamer, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I wish we could say more, but as we are refocusing on options with centralized exchanges, we're also learning that as we pursue these things seriously, we have to be very careful about what we talk about. So continuing that effort, and we'll release updates if and when we lock in and progress some listings there. But for now, the goal is to kind of find some that we are less exposed to what's happening in the US, but still increase our access to folks in target areas outside of the US, specifically like Southeast Asia and other parts there, even Japan as well, given Klaytn is very focused there and we have additional marketing resources. So the goal is to get Jewel in more places to be bought and marketed. One thing we haven't really talked on is adding it to other dexes on other chains. Doesn't really seem as, I guess I'll use the word worth it, because we would have to put up liquidity and manage a lot there. But that could change. People have opinions that we should be focusing not only on centralized exchanges and on-ramps and things within the DFK ecosystem, but looking at the decentralized finance ecosystem on other chains. Submit those questions and those opinions, and that'll definitely contribute to what we're working on.
Very nice. Thank you. One last thing I did want to mention, because I just saw something that reminded me. Workhorse, I believe you're going to be making an appearance here in the near future, are you not?
Woo! Are you talking about on the internet, on a podcast?
I am, although if there's other appearances, I want to know about those too.
Well, every day I do go outside at least once for reasons. But also next Tuesday night, I will be on the Bogside Chats podcast, Aruni, hanging out with those guys, making up a bunch of shit. It'll be great.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, if you want to make those IRL appearances and just drop your address to everybody, that's okay too. But otherwise...
Maybe I'll give that away during the podcast. We'll never know until it happens.
Everybody can tune in to the Bogside Chats for Workhorse. So, yeah, you can watch Magnus Monday night with Christian and then Ian Tuesday night with Bogside. So, really looking forward to that. But with that, we are going to wrap up this week's AMA. I am curious. I saw that the Ava Gaming on a Vox account had joined the audience. I don't know if you're able to, but if you'd care to jump on stage and do our traditional bullish at the end of this AMA, you're more than welcome to. So if it is something that you're able to do, you can throw a request to speak in, and if not, we won't hold it against you. But prior to that, any final thoughts from anybody? I'll give my usual don't ape into broken mechanics. Super excited to have Hubert back. I know we have very subtly referred to several things, but as always, we have several things in the works, and a lot of them are very exciting, and we are looking forward to being able to share more details on those. So definitely stay tuned there. Does anybody else have any final thoughts they want to give before we wrap up today?
I'll just add a little bit. If people have been following Avalanche news, there has been a ton of focus for gaming, Web3 gaming on Avalanche ecosystem. And, there's some big players there. So there's some well-funded players there. There's some cool games. And there's a lot of influencers coming into the area as well. The more active we are on our socials and interact with and support these other games, I think the more it encourages others to do the same. So it's awesome having Avalanche Gaming here listening, whether or not they join to bullish us. That'd be great, by the way. But pay attention to the other games. Shrapnel is one that's kind of a big one. They're everywhere. There's a lot of what do they call them? Extraction packs being handed out on different shows. Like shout out to Doug Hype. He's been giving away DFK stuff as well as some Shrapnel extraction packs. There's other games that are looking at the ecosystem and they want to see how the communities are interacting. So the more we can do to support others and also have some cross-pollination, I think that's good for all of us. We're happy to be a part of a chain that is so focused on gaming and getting that proper exposure. Just helps all of us. We just need to make sure that it's clear we're part of Avalanche. We're on an island and a subnet, but technology is making bridges there, and we want to make sure we're supporting all the new people coming in. So shout out to anybody in the audience on the Avalanche side, and we want to make sure we're supporting those. And let's get out there and do it.
For sure. It does not look like we are going to get them to come up and bullish us today, which is a shame, but that's okay. Let's see. Starbuck, you around? You want to come up and bullish us real quick? Somebody's going to take me up on this offer. Maybe. It's like people have work or jobs or something. Dang, I know. They're just not available to my immediate and spontaneous requests. There's Starbuck.
Priorities.
Starbuck.
Bull on. Bullish, baby. Let's go.
Bullish.
Bullish. Bullish.
Thanks, everybody.
See you
Batman
guys
bullish.
next week. Thanks, Starbuck.
My man.
Thanks. Thanks, Starbuck.